What's going on, guys? Welcome to the video. Now, as some of you will already know from my video before, Boris Johnson has taken no deal off the table, but it seems even the media are picking up on it now. This comes after Nigel Farage offered an election pact with the Tory party based around Boris Johnson throwing out his surrender treaty and either campaigning on making a free trade agreement or just leaving with no deal, which is what Nigel Farage said at his election campaign launch yesterday. Obviously, Boris Johnson dismissed the chances of a Tory Brexit party pact simply because Boris Johnson wants to take his deal through and doesn't want to go out on no deal because, as the article says, he wants to capture the centre ground. Now, the Mail, among others, are reporting on this in the headlines, Boris Johnson takes no deal off the table. This is not something that was really up for debate. As soon as he got his deal, we knew no deal was off the table. PM's manifesto will abandon the threat of crashing out of EU and promise tax cuts in a bid to capture the centre ground after ruling out a pact with Nigel Farage's Brexit party. Johnson's new manifesto will focus on achieving Brexit immediately with his fantastic New Deal. As I said back at the time, this was never up for debate. We always know it was going to happen. According to the outgoing Culture Secretary Nicky Morgan, a no-deal Brexit is now effectively off the table. Boris Johnson's new manifesto is set to abandon the threat of no deal as the Prime Minister attempts to gain support from the centre ground, it has been revealed. In direct contrast with his initial do-or-die vow to leave the EU with or without a deal on October the 31st, Johnson will focus on achieving Brexit immediately through his fantastic deal. This is not really something that was up for debate, like I've said. Everybody knew he was going to, or should have known he was going to do this. He ain't going to go and get a deal and be the toast of the political circles for pulling off the near impossible and then go back on it unless he absolutely had to. And at the moment, it doesn't seem like he has to. He is still soaring in the polls, so why would he at this point go on about leaving with no deal? He doesn't need to. He got a deal with the EU, which is what everyone was moaning at him for. Oh, well, I say everyone, with the exception of anyone who voted leave. Details of the manifesto emerged as Johnson revealed he would reject Nigel Farage's offer of a Leave alliance at the general election, telling voters the only way to guarantee Brexit will happen is to support the Conservative Party at the ballot box. Well, that's debatable. Depends on what sort of Brexit you're talking about. Mr Johnson will also pledge to lift the threshold at which people start paying national insurance contributions and raise the threshold for the 40p rate of income tax from 50,000 to 80,000. Well, I can't see that really helping to get the Labour vote up north, so I'm not sure what he's doing there. Business Secretary Andrea Leadsom also revealed last night the government would continue to keep business rates and tax breaks under review and that it would focus on ramping up the supply of affordable housing. The manifesto revelations came on a day that the Prime Minister made a U-turn on long-standing policy as he abandoned the Tory stance on fracking in an effort to boost the party's green credentials. Mr Gove insisted in an interview with the Daily Mail that the Tories did not need Mr Farage's help. No, they don't need Mr Farage's help. They need the Brexit supporting voters' help. At the end of the day, Farage is just trying to combine it. It's not directly needing Farage's help. Farage is just facilitating Brexit voters going the same way. He's not trying to say that Farage is going to help and Boris needs Farage. No, they both need the voters. This is what they seem to be forgetting, if you ask me. They seem to be forgetting that it's the voters they need to convince, not each other with all this posturing in the media. They just need to fucking either sort it out or go against each other, which at the moment it looks like they're going to go against each other because, as this article says in this video, Boris Johnson is taking no deal off the table. Which I said probably a week ago now, I can't even remember, but I definitely said it in a video. The point remains, it's them two point scoring with each other that will do more damage than anything else. Mr Johnson told the BBC that voting for any other party than his was tantamount to putting Jeremy Corbyn in. I wouldn't go that far. I mean, it may be in some seats, but not in every seat. In some seats, voting for the Brexit Party will win, and in other seats, voting for the Brexit Party won't make the slightest bit of difference because they have low numbers in that area for whatever reason. The Labour or Conservatives were going to win it regardless. So no, that's not necessarily true. A Daily Mail poll suggests that the Conservatives are on course to make dramatic gains from Labour in northern seats, including Workington, which is seen as key to victory. Ministers were forced to defend Mr Johnson's agreement with the EU after it was savaged by Donald Trump. It wasn't really savaged, he just pointed out that a lot of the shit that's in it is going to make it very difficult for the UK and US to do a trade deal afterwards. Not impossible, but difficult. meaning obviously that it will limit what we can trade with and how good this trade deal would be. So just on that basis, Boris needs to rethink his fucking trade deal with the EU, obviously. Mr Johnson and Jeremy Corbyn agreed to go head-to-head on November the 19th in the first ever TV debate between two main party leaders. MPs have been warned by police not to campaign alone at night because of growing threats and abuse. No, I'm sure they will just be fine. The fact that people are reporting this in the media is more likely to make idiots try and do something just so they can think they're funny or think they're clever. Don't threaten MPs, don't say anything to them, attack their ideas. You don't need to threaten them, they're not worth the time. Mr Farage yesterday announced his Brexit party will contest every seat across England, Scotland and Wales on December 12th unless Mr Johnson ditches his EU divorce accord and agrees to strike a non-aggression pact. Mr Johnson later dismissed the offer in a move which is likely to disappoint Donald Trump, the US President, who last night urged the Prime Minister and Mr Farage to do a deal. Well, the President will say that because, like me, he probably thinks there is absolutely no point in these two point scoring off each other with party politics, which this election is going to end up being if we carry on down this path. Mr Trump said if the two men were to get together, they would be an unstoppable force and could do something terrific. Yes, they could, but Boris's hands are tied by the Ramonas in his party at the end of the day, and the fact that the Tories do kind of need the centre ground. We can't hide from that fact. The Brexit vote alone might not necessarily be enough to take them over the line, even with the help of Farage. So I do understand why Boris is doing it, even if I don't agree with him. According to the outgoing Culture Secretary Nicky Morgan, Johnson's new manifesto means a no-deal Brexit has effectively been taken off the table. Never mind his new manifesto, we knew that after he got the deal. In an interview with The Times, she said if you vote Conservative at this election, you're voting to leave with this deal. Like I said, guys, that's what the Conservative vote is, it's to leave with the deal. Which, to be honest with you guys, could well be enough because people are sick of Brexit, people are scared of the Remainers doing something else to try and stop it. So I fear a fair proportion of Brexiteers might just accept the Boris Johnson deal. Who knows? Meanwhile, Johnson told ITV yesterday, our opportunity now is to get this thing done, come back in the middle of December, knock it over the line and then take the country forward. The newspaper added that the manifesto will not include a commitment to fiscal rule and the Conservatives are in breach of the previous rules which stated that borrowing must be lower than 2% of GDP. The Institute for Fiscal Studies, IFS, this month calculated that Chancellor Sajid Javid pushed the budget deficit above target by 4.7 billion. Johnson will also pledge to continue the fuel duty freeze as well as increase the number of extra police officers to 25,000 and extend free childcare for 3 and 4-year-olds. However, the Prime Minister made a U-turn on long-standing policy earlier as he abandoned the Tory stance on fracking in an effort to boost the party's green credentials. The controversial method of extracting gas from the earth will be put on hold after a report from the Oil and Gas Authority found it is not possible to accurately predict the probability or magnitude of earthquakes linked to fracking. Well, it's an earthquake. I think they struggle to predict an actual earthquake, which if I remember geology right, is to do with the tectonic plates rubbing against each other over a period of time until they snap back. So, yeah, if they can't predict something that's happening over hundreds or thousands of years, they ain't going to predict something that's happened because you fracked. Let's be honest. Johnson had previously said fracking was an answer to the people's prayers, but he has backed down in the face of criticism over the government's environmental record. Yep, because if you get criticised by something, you have to back down. Gotta be woke these days. In an interview with Daily Mail, Michael Gove declared that the Tory election manifesto would promise tax cut to leave people with more of what they earn. He said that there would be a significant new policy in a number of areas designed to ensure that people who are worried about the cost of living know the government is on their side. And the rest of the article just literally goes on about the manifesto, which I'm not going on about here. The point of this video was more to talk about the fact that no deal has been taken off the table. What's going to happen here? Well, if Boris gets elected, obviously, we leave with his deal. He'll push that through Parliament. I highly doubt there'll be anything we'll be able to do. Not judicial review, not nothing, simply because he'll have the numbers in Parliament to pass it, and that will prevent the Supreme Court from getting involved, even though they don't want Brexit. So that'll be it. Boris Johnson and Nigel Farage pact still could happen. It's not completely impossible, but I would definitely say it's highly unlikely. Especially with the way it is now, Boris Johnson doesn't actually need it, so why would he? Well, it looks as if he doesn't need it. Only time will tell, but I'll say something. both Boris Johnson and Nigel Farage are playing a risky game with what people voted for. And obviously, that's not a very good idea. The party politics I've seen just over the last few days from the Conservatives and the Brexit Party is an absolute disgrace. They're supposed to be supporting the same cause, not trying to fuck each other over. They need to grow up. But anyway, I'm going to end the video there. It was supposed to be a short one. It's ended up turning into a long rambling one, mainly because this article just rambles on a load of shit about the manifesto when they draw you in with a headline that's taking no deal off the table when less than half of it contains that. Now, I want to thank the channel's PayPal, Patreon and Subscribe-Star members for supporting the channel, along with everyone who watches my videos. Remember to let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Leave a like, subscribe with the notification bell and share this video as it helps the channel a lot. And I'll see you all in the next one.
This Parliament is a dead Parliament. It should no longer sit. It has no moral right to sit on these green benches. They don't like the truth. Twice they have been asked to let the electorate decide upon whether they should continue to sit in their seats, while they block 17.4 million people's votes. Parliament is a disgrace, but they're too cowardly to give it a go. But the time is coming. The time is coming, Mr. Speaker, when even these turkeys won't be able to prevent Christmas.
There is a pattern consistent throughout history of oppressed people turning on the oppressors. Slaves against their owners, the peasantry against the feudal barons, colonies, Mr. Verhofstadt, against their empires. And that is why Britain is leaving. And it doesn't matter which language you use, we are going and we are glad to be going. We're off.